Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. Happy 4th of July, and let's celebrate by talking about the 1990 Captain America movie, which came out in 1990, was directed by Albert Pyun, and stars Matt Salinger as the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan. Or in this case, no plan at all. I apologize for utilizing that song from the MCU into this conversation about this movie. I don't think I really need to go into too much detail about the plot for this one. It's essentially the Captain America origin story. Steve Rogers, played by Matt Salinger, is experimented on to become the hero Captain America. He's off to fight the Red Skull, he gets frozen in ice, and then he wakes up 50 years later in 1990, and he realizes that the Red Skull is still alive, and it's up to him to try to punch out the Red Skull and defeat him once and for all. Now, I actually have a very interesting history with this movie here. I've seen the Nostalgia Critic review, and this was back in the day when I was a big fan of him, and then over time I realized, oh, he just does the same shtick and is kind of obnoxious. But putting that aside, I have seen the review, I have heard a lot of people talk about this movie, mainly some of the crew members from the old website Spill.com. They would occasionally talk about the 1990s Captain America movie on one of their podcasts, The League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen, or LEOG for short. And some of those conversations came up again in 2011 when the first Avenger came out. And then on Christmas of 2014, the same year that The Winter Soldier came out and just blew all of our minds, my brother decided, you know what? I'm in the mood to give my older brother a gag gift. So Christmas comes around and he gets me Captain America on Blu-ray. And when I opened this package and saw this Blu-ray, I laughed for a good 5 minutes because I had heard how infamous this movie was. And at the same time, I was also kind of mad because I thought to myself, why would you give me this? Why would you bestow this upon me? So I held on to it. I'm still hanging on to it, clearly, but 4 years later, I finally told my brother, all right, you remember that Captain America Blu-ray you bought me for Christmas? Well, we are watching it right now, and you are going to sit by my side and watch it with me. So we watched it, and boy, is this a special movie. I mean, it's not Howard the Duck bad, I will say that. I think it's a fraction of a percent better than Howard the Duck, and mainly because it's kind of a pathetic movie. Now let me explain why I think that this is kind of a pathetic movie. And in order to do that, I have to give you a history lesson on how this movie came to be, and it starts with the Cannon Group. If you're familiar with movies from the 1980s, especially low-budget schlock movies, you'll know the Cannon Group and its producing duo, Golan and Globus. So in 1987, the Cannon Group wanted to start making more high-profile and big-budget movies because they would just make these low-budget schlock films and then use the profits to fund whatever movies they would make further down the line. Well, in 1987, they made 3 movies. Masters of the Universe starring Dolph Lundgren, Over the Top starring Sylvester Stallone, and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, all of which flopped big time, and this ultimately led to the death of the Cannon Group. But they actually had the right to make 3 other movies if Superman 4, Masters of the Universe, and Over the Top were successful, and that was a Superman 5, a Spider-Man movie, and a Captain America movie. The Spider-Man movie and Superman 5 obviously did not get made, but once the 2 producers split up and started their own production companies, Menahem Golan took the rights to Captain America, and he produced this movie for a mere $3 million. Just compare that to the Richard Donner Superman movie, which cost around $55 million to make, or Tim Burton's Batman, which cost around $40 million. Can you imagine making a comic book movie for just $3 million? I certainly couldn't, especially with a character as high profile as Captain America, and apparently it still hasn't been done because that's ultimately the reason why this movie is so pathetic. But this movie is also a thing of beauty. I might sound like a hipster by saying that, but there is a part of me that absolutely loves this movie just for how terrible it is. And I gotta say right off the bat, it does a decent job with the origin. it gives us Steve Rogers, who becomes Captain America. It sends him crashing into ice and then frozen for decades until he thaws out and enters the present day. So I guess in that sense they got the broad strokes down, but the execution is just so terrible. And I don't even have to compare this movie to the first Avenger, which, let's be honest, did the origin of Captain America a billion times better. But when you look at a movie like Superman from Richard Donner, that movie really took its time developing Clark Kent, giving us a reason why he'd want to go out and become Superman, whereas when you watch this Captain America movie, through exposition, they tell us Steve Rogers has volunteered for this experiment that will make an ordinary man with polio gain superpowers and just be the ultimate badass. And there's really no build-up to Steve Rogers. The very first time we see him, he's creepily looking at his mother during a going-away party. And I gotta talk about Matt Salinger because he is so... He's terrible in this movie, but there's some weird enjoyment that I get out of watching him because Matt Salinger is sometimes unintelligible when it comes to delivering his dialogue. He looks so bored out of his mind. He has the most hilarious faces where he just looks confused a lot of the times. And as Captain America, he's wearing a costume that looks like the kind of costume that Steve Rogers would have worn in the first Avenger, but they scrapped it because it looks way too uncomfortable. And also those fake ears. I don't know why they didn't just put holes in the little hood so Matt Salinger's actual ears could fit through it. I mean, if they wanted to do a comic accurate representation of the costume, I don't know why they just spent the extra money to make fake ears. And you could tell those ears are fake. Every time those ears pop up, I laugh because it's so convincing. The Red Skull is pretty lame. His origin doesn't seem to line up with what the comics are. I mean, because they make the Red Skull in this movie Italian for some reason. He's not a Nazi from Germany like he is in every other interpretation of the character. And the makeup job is just horrendous. I know there are points where Hugo Weaving's Red Skull kind of looks like plastic, but you get so much emotion and expression from Hugo Weaving's performance because the makeup job is that good. With this movie, it's hard to describe the makeup job, but it's not... The actor playing the Red Skull can't act his way through the makeup. I mean, if that were a paper bag, this actor would be screwed. And then you have Ronny Cox as the President of the United States. He's fine, I guess. You have Ned Beatty playing his best friend, who's kind of a conspiracy theorist, almost like what Brian Tyree Henry was in Godzilla vs. Kong, or... No, you know what, I'm going to stop right there. I'm not even going to mention any real-life conspiracy theorist names because they do not deserve to be recognized. I guess the reason they only got Ned Beatty in this movie is because he was in Superman and somebody thought, hey, Captain America is like Marvel's Superman. Which, by the way, when they experiment on Steve Rogers to make him Captain America, because I don't think there's any super soldier serum involved with this interpretation, somebody says he might not be Superman, but he will represent what America stands for, or something like that. I'm kind of exaggerating the dialogue, but the bottom line is that Superman gets mentioned. And I always find it funny whenever Marvel movies reference DC characters. The same thing happened in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man when Aunt May referenced Superman. So that's kind of amusing. But back to the characters. Ronny Cox and Ned Beatty are probably the only two recognizable people in the movie. The actress who plays both of Captain America's love interests, Bernice Stewart, not Peggy Carter, and Sharon Stewart, not Sharon Carter, the actress is not that good, and both characters are just very useless, especially Sharon, because if you read the comics or you've seen Winter Soldier, Civil War, or Falcon and Winter Soldier, you know Sharon Carter is a complete badass of a character, and in this movie, she is pretty much the girlfriend that tags along, similar to how Beverly was in Howard the Duck. And then the action is just not that impressive. It's just a series of random explosions, some very cheap miniatures, a plastic shield that clearly is plastic. There's no way anyone would get hurt if you threw that thing. and some of the most atrocious editing I've seen in a long time. I usually reference Batman Begins as the prime example of terribly edited action scenes, but the more I've reviewed movies on this channel and the more movies I've seen, I realize that the biggest problem with Batman Begins is more the fact that the action scenes are shot too close, not so much that it's poorly edited. But this movie here, oh man, the editing in this movie gives me whiplash. There are several points in the action where there are cuts that last less than a second, and you get lost in the action, and it just makes you feel nauseous. Again, goes to show you that for $3 million, they could not pull off a Captain America movie, even with the action. It's terrible. I don't have much else to say about this movie. I think everyone acknowledges that this is truly terrible. It's got terrible acting, it has terrible dialogue, the action is piss poor, the editing is obnoxious. But there's a charm to this movie to where I can't hate it. Because it's so pathetic, it's hilarious to watch. And there's some great moments that make me laugh whenever I watch the movie. After Captain America gets shot by the Nazi that kills the scientist and goes, "Heil Hitler!" He gets out of bed, fully recovered, mere minutes after being shot, and goes, "Colonel Lewis, where did you say that launch site was?" Like, you can barely hear what he's saying, and you have this really cheesy early 90s music playing that's supposed to be the heroic Captain America theme. And then we're immediately introduced to him in the costume, and it's so hilarious. Then there's the line where he jumps out of the plane and goes, "I love you, Bernie!" That makes me laugh. Like I mentioned before, a lot of Matt Salinger's facial expressions are hilarious. And then there's the line that everyone knows. Whether you've seen this movie or not, you know about the infamous, "Would you pull the car over, please? I think I'm gonna be sick." Like, he tricks Ned Beatty into pulling this truck over because he's sick, then steals the truck to get out of there, and then he pulls the same shit again with Sharon in Italy. It's hilarious every time that happens. So by all means, especially with the "will you pull the car over, I think I'm going to be sick" scenes, this should be an insulting movie to Captain America. And in a way it is. But again, because it's such a low budget movie and it's such a cult film, I can't bring myself to hate it. I'm not going to recommend this movie at all, and I would certainly say don't waste your money on it. But there's no reason to be angry at this movie. I mean, it's just not good. It's enjoyably bad, I think more so than Howard the Duck. And another reason I'm not mad at it is because we have a great interpretation of Captain America already, with several great movies featuring the character. Whether it's the first Avenger, Winter Soldier, Civil War, the first Avengers movie, Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. So we've got an iconic representation of Captain America on the same level as Christopher Reeve's Superman, to the point where we don't have to pick on Matt Salinger's Captain America. Like, I mean, we can, but there's no reason to get angry or head over heels about this interpretation because we've got a great one already. So again, I don't recommend this movie at all, but if you find yourself in the mindset to watch some terrible early 90s schlock, then I don't think you can get any better than Captain America. But for anyone else, just stick to the MCU movies. They're infinitely better because they're actually good. And there you go, that's my review for the 1990 Captain America movie. Now I want you all to have a great, safe 4th of July. Go eat some barbecue, some hot dogs, spend time with friends, family. But again, just be safe because we are still in a pandemic. We are not out of the woods yet. And then tune in either Tuesday or Thursday for the third movie that I'm going to be reviewing in prep for Black Widow, Angley's Hulk. This will mark the first time I have watched the movie from beginning to end since it came out in theaters in 2003. And based on my memories right now, I remember this movie being so weird and bizarre, so I'm curious to see how it holds up rewatching it now. But until then, I want to know what you guys think about Captain America. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Captain America. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.